Today is my 20,000 mile review of my hang on, I got to try and get my best cyclecruza impression going here. My 2021 CBR 1000 double R. Now, if you don't know who cyclecruza is, he is an OG motovlogger from the Cleveland area. Dude's been around well over 10 years, like pushing 300,000 something subs. But yeah, he used to have a fireblade too. Anyway, I'm Code Gray. Welcome to the channel. Okay, no one coming that way. Let me look behind me. No one coming that way. I am gonna let traffic get just a little ways down the road down there, because maybe we could sneak in a little pull just for fun. Okay. And don't want to go too much. Cops are in this area. But yep, she's still quick. Okay, on to the review. Now, if you look down here at my my display, I'm actually a little bit over 20,276 to be exact. All right, in this video, we are going to go over some great things about this bike, a couple of not so great things about this bike, one very confusing thing about this bike because the manual is completely wrong, and we'll have some tips for you as well, in case you're interested in purchasing this motorcycle, or if you recently purchased this motorcycle. All right, great thing number one about this bike, comfort. This bike is very comfortable, especially for a sport bike. Now, I know a lot of you guys aren't going to believe me, but I'm speaking the truth here. This is a very comfortable motorcycle for me. Now, this will lead into tip number one about the comfort. If you've never ridden a leader bike before and you're just new to them and you're trying to get going on some, give yourself a good month of riding before you decide if the motorcycle is comfortable or not, because it is a different position and your body has to adapt to this position. And once your body gets a little bit more used to it, everything becomes a lot more comfortable. Great thing number two about this bike that I love, even after 20,000 miles, the power. Now with this bike, you don't have to drop a gear to disappear. You can just go in any gear and disappear. Love it. I know some of you will say too much power for the street. I say just the right amount, because guess what? It's a motorcycle and you can ride it like any other motorcycle. Nice and smooth and slow and relaxing and have a nice comfortable ride, or you can have a little bit of fun. It's got the whole package. I'm gonna have to coin that phrase, disappear in any gear. All right, great thing number three, reliability. Now, it's a Honda, so I really shouldn't have to say anything more than that, but I will. Granted, it won't be much, just a very slight elaboration. I really haven't had any major problems with this bike so far. Nothing major anyway. One of the not so good things we'll get to, but 99%, no problems. Well, this will lead me into tip number two. When you are doing your oil change on this bike, you have to remove the bottom fairing. You don't have to remove side fairings or nothing like that, just the fairing on the bottom that, you know, covers the oil filter. If you look up tutorials and stuff, it'll tell you you only have to remove one side, the side that the oil filter's on. Save yourself a hassle and just remove the whole bottom fairing. It's a whole lot easier because it's just 4 bolts, and if you try to take off just the one side, the fairing clips together in 2 halves, and that clip is a nightmare. So it's just a whole lot easier going ahead and just pulling the whole bottom fairing off. Okay, I won't say great thing, but I will say good thing. Number 4, ease of use on your settings for the bike. It's fairly easy to navigate through all the settings. You got your, selector switch here, your mode and stuff like that. It's all pretty easy to work with. Now, I won't lie, I'm kind of a set it and forget it kind of person. I find a setting I like and I leave it there. So I don't play around with it very much, but when I first got the bike, of course I went through the settings and you could change the background and all this stuff. Originally, you see here where it says code gray, that originally said CBR 1000 RR. So you can customize that, which I thought was pretty cool. But overall, it's pretty easy to navigate this whole system here. All right, now the very last great thing I've got for this bike is it's just fun. This is a very fun bike. Now, don't come at me with that, it can't be fun, it's a Honda. If you get on this bike and you don't have fun, well, I got bad news for you. You just don't know how to have fun. Between the power and the performance and the great braking, yeah, this thing's just a blast. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not having a blast right now being stuck in traffic at 35 miles per hour, but if you've seen my videos before, 35 miles per hour is a pretty common thing for me. The places I tend to go, I kind of get stuck in traffic like this, so. Anyway, all right, that should wrap it up for all the great things I love about this bike, even after 20,000 miles. And we are going to get on to a couple of things that, well, aren't so great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can find a quick place to pull over, because I'm going to have to point them out to you. All right, no need to get too busy with it. Quick jump off. Now, problem number 1, I've unfortunately developed a bit of a fork seal leak. I tried a couple things online to get up there and clean it out because they say a lot of it could be debris, but either I'm not getting it or it's worse than just a little bit of dirt. Either way, that's problem number 1. Let's take a look at this. Okay, can you see this here? And that right there? That leads us into problem number 2. Now, before I delve deeper into problem number 2, let's go back to problem number 1 on that fork seal leak. It's a little bit different depending on where I go. If I'm on smooth roads, I hardly notice it. If I'm on rough roads, it tends to leak a little bit more. Either way, I got to get it fixed very soon. So yeah, that's where the 99% reliability came in, because there's the percent that didn't make it 100. That was that fork seal. Okay, now let's dive into problem number 2. And if you saw those dents on my exhaust and you haven't watched my channel before, so many months back I was involved in a hit and run. Someone in an SUV pulled out of a side road, tagged me on my exhaust. Luckily I was able to swerve out of the way mostly, but they did hit my exhaust. Now, it looked a whole lot worse than it was now. I was able to pull the exhaust cover off and rubber mallet it back to somewhat decent shape and polish all the paint off of it and get it looking halfway decent. But ever since then, I've had a couple problems arise. Twice now, this has been pretty far apart, but twice now I've had a check engine light come on. It would come on, and then by the following morning it was gone again. And then maybe, I don't know, a month later it popped up again. I got a check engine light, and by the morning it was gone again, and I haven't seen it since. But what makes me think it could possibly be the exhaust is, ever since I got hit, every now and again I hear a little bit of exhaust coming from down here instead of back there. So I think when I got hit, that might have knocked my exhaust a little bit loose from the manifold there, just slightly. Now, I'm no mechanic or anything like that. I never claimed to be. But I'm guessing it's losing a little bit of compression or some back pressure or something that's causing that check engine light. Yeah, so that's problem number 2. That's two bummers about the bike so far, is the fork seal, because I know that's not going to be cheap. And everybody knows exhausts aren't cheap. So now, before we get into the confusing part, I'm looking at my batteries here and I'm seeing them getting very low. I don't want them cutting me off mid-sentence, so we're gonna stop and do a battery change. It'll take a few minutes, but of course with the magic of editing, it'll seem like it's gonna happen in a second. So I will be back in 1 second. And we are back, just like magic. All right, let's get into the confusing part of this motorcycle. Now, the confusing part of this motorcycle is this right here. If you look down here, you see all those ones? Well, those are your power settings. And that can be very confusing, especially to a new rider or someone who's not paying very close attention. All right, let's start from the left and work our way to the right. The P is your power setting. It goes from 1 to 3. 1 being the most power, 3 being the least. Next, T is your traction control. 1 being the least intrusive, and I think it goes all the way up to like 7 or 9 or something crazy like that, being the most intrusive. Wheelie control will be next, the W. 1 is the least intrusive. I think it goes up to 3, maybe 5. 1 being the least intrusive, 3 or 5 being the most. Now, the one the manual's got completely wrong is the engine braking. In the manual, it will tell you 3, it goes from 1 to 3, it will tell you 3 is the least intrusive on the engine braking. That is 100% inaccurate. 1 is the least intrusive. Unfortunately, after a year of riding, I found that out. Because if you have it at 3, as soon as you let off the throttle just a little bit, you are pitched forward. I mean, the engine braking is very strong on 3. Now, here's some tips for you. Because this is confusing, I'm going to tell you what I found out. And how I found this out was some very nice person left a comment on one of my videos and saying, do yourself a favor and just set everything to 1. He says you'll be shocked at the difference. Well, let me tell you, he was not wrong. Power on 1, I got full power. Traction control on 1, least intrusive. Because the higher it is, then it will throttle back your power. Even though you're at full power, the more the traction control is on, it will throttle back your power. And the same thing happens with wheelie control. The wheelie control is supposed to activate when it senses your wheel coming off the ground. Since I don't do wheelies, I can't say one way or the other, but I'm going to follow this guy's advice and leave it at 1 because it made a difference. And make sure you set your engine braking to 1 because that manual is absolutely wrong. The least intrusive is 1, the most intrusive is 3. So I set everything to 1, and holy moly, the difference is just crazy. My bike is so much smoother. I'm not struggling to get power at any time, and when I let off the throttle, I coast like I'm supposed to. I mean, there's still engine braking, don't get me wrong, but it's not pitching me forward every time I let off the throttle. So yes, if you are just getting this bike, once you get used to the power and the way it handles, do yourself a favor and set everything to 1. You will be shocked at the difference. Now, another reason I say go ahead and do this is because the power on this bike is very linear, okay? So you can get on it a little bit without you worrying about it looping, okay? I mean, unless you whiskey throttle or something like that, or do something crazy. Even with everything set at 1, you should be nice and smooth. Now hopefully we got a little bit of that confusing mess sorted out, and if you happen to come across this bike and you do purchase it, pay attention to your settings because they are not correct in the manual. One other thing I want to say before I wrap this up is this 20,000 miles, I hit that in just under my 2-year mark. It's like maybe 3 weeks away from hitting my 2 years. So I've been riding the crap out of this bike, and no really long trips either. I mean, I've had one to the bottom of the state. I live at the top of Ohio, so I went to the bottom of Ohio, and one out of state into Pennsylvania. Nothing major. So if that tells you anything, I'm always on this bike. So obviously I like it very, very much. Yeah, I gotta get a couple things repaired, but it's small, and not all of it was the bike's fault. But really, I guess that should about do it. This is my 20,000 mile review of my CBR 1000 RR. All right, guys, I am going to wrap this one up. I'm Code Gray. I'll catch you guys in the next one.